Hi everyone, Barbara Moore here, Catch Your Breath 60. I'm inviting you to join me and to please leave your comments for tea time today. It's about 3:01 Eastern Standard Time. Hi Susan, how are you? I don't know how this new thing works where you wave to people or something like that. So today I wanted to talk about a couple of things. One is we've come back to standard time. How does everybody like standard time? I think most of us have turned our clocks back, and so now we're getting dark very, very early again in the afternoons. Hi Jackie, how are you today? If I sound a little bit out of breath, I've got to tell you, I'm going to talk about the reason why. So I noticed that, I used to, work, the 9 to 5 like everybody else did. And I actually have noticed that it really doesn't bother me that much that the time's getting earlier or that it's getting dark earlier because I'm not working anymore. So it really doesn't bother me. I actually looked out the window last night and I said to my husband, this thing about getting dark early doesn't bother me because I'm not actually working anymore and I don't have to go out, so I don't really notice it. So we've turned to standard time, and we are still losing, seconds every day. So I think we're losing a couple of minutes every day, and we're going to get darker and darker. So we're going into that. So I had talked a couple of weeks ago about my problems that I was having with water weight, and I really am. I've gained about 12 pounds of water weight, and I've been working very hard with my cardiologist to try and get this water weight down. And I don't know if anybody else has this problem. Hi, Merlin. It's one of the problems that you have when you have a heart problem. And because I have COPD, and because I was actually stupid enough to let it go to the point where it got so bad that I didn't have a choice to get it checked out, I had caused a bit of heart damage, and I am now in heart failure. And heart failure isn't what do you mean, Jackie, about is something wrong? Can you not hear me or something? I'm on my old camera, so I'm hoping that we're not going to have the same issues that we did. Oh, thank you, Elaine. Can everybody hear me okay? Hi, Tammy. I'm hoping that everybody can hear me okay. Can you just give me a nod about whether or not you can hear me and that the camera's okay and everything? So I wanted to talk about my pictures. My nephew has done a couple of pictures for me, and I've had them up. Yes, okay, thank you. I've had them up a couple of times, and last week I put one up for the tea time, and somebody accused me of stealing it from them. So Susan can vouch for me, she's here today, that my nephew did these pictures for me, specifically about tea time and COPD. If anybody would like a copy of one of those pictures, please let me know. He is willing to sell them, or he can do a custom copy for you. But I did not steal them from any website. And I really don't steal too much from other websites or memes or anything. So anyway, so I started talking about my water weight. So I have gained about 12 pounds, and I've been working with my cardiologist to try and get my water weight down. And it's been quite the task. It really is, because you can hear it in my voice that I'm kind of short of breath right now. Well, we've been working on getting this water weight down and increasing Lasix. And I remember when I first got COPD, my doctor was an older doctor at the time, and he kept saying, oh, we can't increase the Lasix. We can't, do anything about increasing the Lasix, because if your electrolytes go out, then you're really in trouble. And I thought, I don't know what the heck he's talking about. He's like old school, and he doesn't really, Anyways, so I'm working with my pulmonary doctor and my cardiologist, and I happen to be seeing my cardiologist more than anybody right now. and he is concerned about my heart failure. And so he said, you know, we've got to get this water down because it's really affecting your heart. So he put me on some really mega, hi Lisa, I think this is your first week today. Thank you for joining us. Hi Sharon. So he put me on some mega water pills. So I'm on Lasix. You know, everybody's on Lasix, right, to keep the water down. And apparently the Lasix isn't working anymore, and I'm on so many milligrams of them that it just doesn't seem to be working, and I'm actually gaining a pound a day, a pound a day, a pound a day, and I can't get it off. And so he put me on metolazone, if anybody's ever heard of that. And this is an amazing pill, because you take one of these metolazone and yeah, Jackie, that's it. Jackie just said that she lost 5 pounds overnight, and I did too. They're fabulous. But what they do is they strip your body of potassium. So we have to be very, very careful about our electrolytes. The two main things that we're concerned about, and they always are, if you notice when you go into the hospital, it's always potassium and magnesium. And my pulmonary doctor calls it the slap. They put you on potassium, magnesium, and prednisone as soon as you go into the hospital, right before you're even admitted or anything. You're right on potassium, magnesium, and prednisone. So anyways, the doctor put me on these metolazone, and I was only taking 2 a week. When I took the metolazone, my weight would go down very quickly, and the day that I didn't take it, it would go up very quickly. So obviously these weren't working, but my cardiologist ordered this blood work, and then he went on rounds. So apparently he does 2 weeks in the office, then he does 2 weeks on rounds. I don't know exactly how it works. But he doesn't answer his emails or check his messages when he's on rounds. And in the meantime, I went for this blood work and I didn't hear anything from him, so I thought everything was okay. And Monday morning, I woke up with a frantic call from my general practitioner's office, who got a hold of my blood reports and said your potassium is dangerously low. So what happens when your potassium gets really, really low? Yes, well, a lot of us have congestive heart failure because of the stress from the COPD, right? The stress that the COPD causes on the heart. And so a lot of us do have congestive heart failure. So what happens when the potassium, so what had happened to me was I was saying to my husband, gee, I really have really bad headaches. And I was checking my oxygen concentration, but it wasn't my oxygen. My oxygen is perfect. My oxygen was fine, but I couldn't walk across the floor. I couldn't go to the fridge to get a glass of water. And my heart was just pounding, pounding, pounding. And I thought, this is really, really odd. And so then I got the call from my family doctor saying, your potassium's really low. And when I started to, and I thought, okay, well, I have potassium supplements that I can take, and the doctor gave them to me. You'll notice that potassium supplements are they're not over the counter anything. Hi, Michelle. Michelle's my daughter-in-law. So the potassium supplements you can't get over the counter. Magnesium you can, but potassium you can't because you can overdose on it. And he said that to me when he gave me the pills, when he gave me the potassium tablets. He said, don't take too many of them because you can overdose on them. So I was only taking them on the days that I was taking the metolazone. All of a sudden I have really bad headaches. I'm totally constipated. Like, you wouldn't believe how constipated I am. And I hope that's not too much information for anybody. But these were the symptoms. Horrible, horrible headaches, terrible constipation, very sleepy. I could not sleep at all, and very irritable. I couldn't walk across the floor because when I did, my heart was just pounding. And this is very unusual for me. I'm not usually as short as a breath as I am now. So when your minerals and electrolytes are low, your heart your heart has to work harder, and this of course affects your breathing. So both my breathing and my heart have been acting up, and I was experiencing cramping in my hands and my feet. I was in bed at night, my foot would go like this, and I just couldn't get it to stop, and my hands were doing it. This is all symptoms of having low potassium. So my doctor's office said, you know, you got to start taking this, and if you have any symptoms, you have to call an ambulance right away. And all I could think about when they said that, hi Marion, all I could think about when they said that, you know, you have to call an ambulance, is how will I let them know the information that I need to let them know if I become unconscious. And I'm starting to think that when I first got sick with COPD and I was in the hospital, every time that I've been in the hospital, they've told me that my magnesium and my potassium were low. And now I find out that this cramping that I'm getting is actually low potassium and magnesium. So magnesium you can take over the counter, and I take it a magnesium and melatonin and GABA. These are the things that help me sleep at night. And I have found that the cramping has lessened since I've been on the magnesium, but it started up again with the low potassium. So the low potassium will cause arrhythmias in your heart, and it is with anybody who has a cardiovascular disease. So we have to be very, very careful, right, about making sure that our electrolytes are up where they should be. Does anybody get regular blood tests taken? And if you do you ever see the results of them? Because I get my blood work done, and they send me a copy, like I've had mine done today to see how my electrolytes are doing now, and I'll have the information emailed to me tonight. GABA is something that helps you to sleep. You look it up on Google it, GABA, and often it goes with melatonin, magnesium, and GABA, and these three things help you sleep at night. If you're low on any of these, then you won't be able to sleep. And you know, we all have problems sleeping. So I started feverishly writing in my journal everything that was happening. And I have been tracking my weight, of course. Thank you, Jackie. Jackie says it's gabapentin, and it is something that helps us sleep. If you Google it, it'll explain it to you. It's easier for you to Google it and look at it yourself. So I started feverishly writing in my journal because I kept thinking, when I was so sick, and earlier last week and into later last week, I could hardly talk. So I started feverishly writing in my journal because I thought, how else am I going to tell the doctors who aren't talking to each other what's going on with me and what the problem is? And I need to go into the hospital. I need to go in and go on an IV Lasix strip with some potassium and magnesium. But the only way that you can do it is if you go in through emergency, and I'm not sick enough to go in through emergency. So I don't know what I'm going to do when I have to get a hold of this cardiologist again, and he won't be available until next week, and see what he's going to do for it. So what did I do for it? So first thing I did was I started writing in my journal. I made sure that everything that a doctor would need to know was written in my journal. And I know I harp on this so much to everybody, but here's the thing, right? If I was going into the hospital and I was unconscious, my husband would say, I don't know what happened. I have no idea. Because it's not that he doesn't listen, it's that I think he doesn't understand a lot of it. And so if I want them to know something, I have to have it written in my journal. And everybody else, you know, my daughter used to live with me, and that but nobody else is here now, only just my husband and I. And so I have to make sure that everything that is told to me is repeated and that it is written down somewhere so that if they do need this information, that they'll be able to get it. The next thing that I did was I found out how I could ease my constipation, because I can't tell you how bad it was. And oh, thank you. Jackie said she finally got a doctor and took her journal to the doctor, and she was amazed. Good for you, Jackie. I'm so happy to hear it. Thank you so much for backing me up on that. The thing is that a lot of things will be said to me that my husband will nod and say, yes, I understand, but he really doesn't understand. And so if I want the doctors to know it, it has to be written in my journal. And the first thing that they'll do is they'll show the journal to my doctor, right? So the first thing that I did was I researched it, and I did some research on Google. And most of what was on Google was easy to read, and it was easy to understand, and most of it was the same. So the first thing that I did was found out how I could ease my constipation, because that was really bad. That was really, really bad. I'm not kidding, because the potassium tells your brain when all of these muscles need to be moved, and this is one of the things that low potassium will do to you. And the second thing that I did was I started on my pills, my magnesium supplements, and then I started to look at foods that could help me. So funny thing, because I don't eat, I have a lot of bloating, and so I don't eat a lot of this stuff, but potatoes, who knew that skins and potatoes, they really do have some nutrients to them, and potassium is one of them. Avocados are excellent. If anybody likes avocados, I love avocados. And I actually had 2 of them in the fridge, but they were too hard to eat. So I had to let them sit on the counter for a couple of days and ripen up. Avocados are great. Watermelon. So this is one of the things when your electrolytes go low, especially in the summer. Watermelon is a really good thing, and it's really, really good for the kids to replace the electrolytes. Spinach, squash, tomatoes, salmon, and raisins. Excellent. So I've started on my journey on looking at things that I can supplement my diet to try and get my magnesium and my potassium up. So I'm hoping that I'm going to get those tests back today, and that everything's going to be okay with that. I think you could probably hear that I'm a little more short of breath. Bananas are excellent, and they actually helped my constipation, believe it or not. So I was really, really happy about this. Okay, so Jackie says, let me ask you this. When you have good stats and you know it's your heart, how do you tell them without sounding like a know-it-all? How do you tell who when you know that it's your heart? Because what happened with my heart was every time I walk across the room, I could feel my heart just going pound, 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 pound. You shouldn't have to explain it to them like you're a know-it-all. The blood work will tell them everything that's going on. And so what you need to do is to get your blood work done on a regular basis. And I used to have a pulmonary doctor who would do this for me. He would do it all the time for me. He would send me like 12 requests to get my blood work done. I would go once a month. And once I started to get the reports back and I started to read them, and they explain what's on the reports, what your blood is, and then you start to understand, like, if this is up or down, then you understand it. The numbers tell it all. You don't have to sound like a know-it-all. If you get the proper tests done, then the numbers tell it all. So I think that the key is to getting the tests done properly. And one of the problems is that in the winter, at least I tend to start gaining water weight. And now I'm starting to wonder whether these cycles that my body goes through is things like when my potassium and magnesium is getting lower, maybe because I'm not eating the right foods. Maybe, I don't know. I know that in the fall I start to gain water, and I don't know why that is. I have no idea why that is, but something that I'm going to have to look into, because it does become an issue, and by Christmas, it will usually be pretty bad. In the summer, it's not as bad. In the winter, it's worse. So I know this from going over my journal for the last 3 years, because I pull out all my journals and I say, oh, look, so this happened last year at this time as well. This is what happened this time last year, and this is what happened the year before. And so, of course, when you have water weight, when you're holding water weight, your salt intake is low. And so we don't have salt on the table. We don't. Hi, Heather. How are you today? We don't have salt on the table. I don't have any salt other than what is naturally in the food. And I also restrict my water to 48 ounces a day. And I track that on my Fitbit. I can track. So every time I have a water, soup, juice, tea, anything like that, that has to count within my 50 ounces of water. So if you have congestive heart failure, you will know that you have been told that you have to restrict your water, which doesn't do well when you're on increased Lasix, because the Lasix will make you very, very thirsty. And metolazone, you're just dying for something. You're just like dry as the desert, right? Or you feel like you're dry as the desert. So because the heart and the lungs are so close together and they work so close together, that when you have a problem with one, you usually have a problem with the other. And that's what my problem is. It's more, I believe, more right now heart failure than it actually is COPD, because my oxygen is staying high within the normal range. But if I get up now to walk across the room to open my door, my heart rate will go up, to about 98, 99, 100. It's not good. So once I have to work at getting the water down. So I hope everybody had a good Halloween. We had a terrible storm for Halloween. So hard. The storm was so intense. And you've probably all seen this on the news, that it moved a barge in Niagara Falls. In the falls, it moved a barge. The barge is on its other side. It's on the opposite side that it was on. Hi, Gwen. How are you today? Heather's with us today, too. So it was a pretty bad storm that we had, eh? And there was a lot of people that lost shingles and stuff off the roof. Thank God we got our roof done, because we were always having problems every time there was a storm like that, and we were leaking in our bathroom. So thank God that's all done. So the one thing that really amazes me is that I can still do my sitting exercises without having to worry about it, without getting too short of breath. Isn't that funny? Jackie said your O2 went down to 80 the other night with oxygen, but because I thought they wouldn't believe me, I didn't call the EMS. Jackie, you should have called them, because that's pretty dangerously low. If it goes any lower than that, you can start to run into a lot of problems. Don't worry about whether they believe you or not. And just because you call EMS doesn't mean that you have to go to the hospital. But sometimes they have some things like nebulizers and stuff. They have different medications on the truck that, they could get you calmed down and straightened up. You should never be afraid to call EMS. So Elisa, you saw that on the news. That was all in the news everywhere. I was so surprised. But anyway, it was a pretty bad storm. In spite of that, we had about 200 kids that came. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, thank God I'm not giving up those candies this year. So, my husband's retired this year, and I keep thinking, like, last year I had to do that all myself, give up the candies and everything. But this year I didn't have to do anything. I just sat and watched TV while they did it. It was fabulous. So Oh, that's about it for tea time today. Please follow me on YouTube. If you'd like to watch the repeat of this, you can watch it on Facebook as soon as it goes live on Facebook, or as soon as it uploads to Facebook. I will be putting it up on YouTube tomorrow. Please join my YouTube station. I am taking a break from blogging, but I am putting some stuff up. I am having a ribbon put up every day on stats for COPD awareness. Remember that this is November is COPD Awareness Month. Please make people aware of what COPD is, what it does to us, and how debilitating that this illness is. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's not really in the right place as far as the sun is, but you know, I like it back there. So take care, everybody. Remember that this is COPD Awareness Month. Never stop talking about it. Tell everybody what it is like to have COPD. And remember that only 30% of people that smoked got COPD. So that is not the only reason why we have COPD. Next week, we'll be talking about Veterans Day and all that stuff. And have a great week, everybody. Take care. Do what you have to do to keep yourself safe so that you can come back and join us again next week. I love every one of your comments, and I really do work hard to try and answer them. This is Barbara Moore signing off for Catch Your Breath 60.